Welcome to Make Your Mark Live. My name is Mark Moyer. I'm super excited to have Lauren Walsh on board today. She's a branding expert and a fabulous person. And I've known her for a little while now. And quite frankly, everybody should be using her. You all know that already. Say hi, Lauren.
Hello, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. And part of what we're doing with this whole MYM Live series, webinar series, as part of Win Again Academy, is to really present people that are experts in their space to fully really take this time to educate and to teach all of you listeners and watchers about the specific topics. And today it's really focusing on how to help you, whether you're an athlete or a non-athlete, really take your brand to the whole next level, and how to do that in a most effective and ideally, I guess, sort of cost-effective way. So I guess first things first, Lauren, you graduated from Purdue. I don't want to say how many years ago, because I guess that tells people how old you are and stuff. But you've been doing this for a long time. You've had your own company, LW Branding, for about 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's grown. But what I've liked about it is that you are being very selective with who you work with, which is really important, because at the end of the day, how they brand themselves is obviously a reflection on your company and your performance, I would guess, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that was kind of the changing point for my whole company too, a couple years ago, when we made sure to make that known, because it's so important. It's not to say that I'm going to turn people away because you've done all these things. Sometimes those people are the ones who need the help the most. But just like you said, it's so important to understand who you are, what you are about, and then surround yourself with those types of people. Because as you and I both know, and we have conversations about this all the time, there is no line between kind of your personal life and then your business life, especially when you work in sports. So it's important to make sure that those people that you're working with are people you're going to want to talk to all the time and have in your inner circle.
That's a great answer. And it's interesting, because I know we've all seen and heard of, whether you're an athlete or a politician or a movie star, sometimes we have trouble sort of controlling what we want to say out to the masses. And it's sort of like that big magical word these days, triggering, but there's always seems to be a triggering event or something that really pushes some people past the point of really thinking with their brain and reacting quickly. But really, I guess the most important question I have just right off the bat is, right now, most of us are sort of homebound because of this whole virus stuff. And we have a lot more, I don't want to say time necessarily, but we probably do have more time to be online, to be looking at social media, to be involved in figuring out how to really just be more involved with things like webinars and seminars and online content. What would you suggest right off the bat for someone who's thinking, well, gee, maybe I should be doing more social media now? What would you suggest is the more of?
Yeah, so, and just to back it up, because number one, make sure you take the time to understand who you are and what your personal brand is. Because a lot of people get caught up, and I've done this before, where they say, oh, I have all this time, I'm going to just start posting on social media. And it's great and it works. And then you get 30, 60, maybe 90 days in, and you say, wait, why did I even start doing this? And what am I supposed to be talking about? But in order to leverage kind of the more and really use the time that you have, which I know a lot of us who live in the city, it's that time that we would be spending commuting, you really want to add value. So don't think of it in terms of a time standpoint, but think about ways, okay, great. Now I don't have that hour car ride in the morning. Should I be going live on my Instagram? Can I go live on Facebook? Can I use it as a way to go ahead and use my time wisely to really add value to other people and leverage the fact that other people are at home? So people that you may not have been able to get access to before, who you can now go live with. You can do a webinar just like we're doing right now. You can leverage the fact that other people are at home to help you establish your brand, get your message out there, and just have really insightful conversations.
Well, that's great. And when you say, and taking that step back again, figure out who you are and what is the messaging you want to give. How would I figure that out? Or how would an athlete, I mean, is this something that, whether you're an athlete or an executive or an entrepreneur or whatever you are, how do you decide, well, what should I put out there?
This goes for everyone, no matter who you are and what you do. Your brand is who you are. So people will say, oh, you have to build your brand. And then it's like, what the heck is that? You don't build a brand, you are your brand. So your best effort and the best way that you can figure out what to even share is to, number one, take a step back, ask yourself the critical questions. Ask yourself, what is my why? Literally, what is the reason that I get up in the morning? What are my core values? What is my life mission? What is the legacy that I want to leave behind? And what are the life experiences that I've had, both good and bad, that have gotten me to this point? Because here's the reality. A lot of people will say, oh, I don't feel like I have enough credibility, or I don't feel like I'm someone who can be sharing this. Look, have you lived? Yes. So all the years that you have lived and gone through your life and gone through ups and downs and had experiences and education and gained knowledge, that is your credibility. That is what you lean into. So focus on answering all of those questions and then allow that to be your brand. And then that's what actually shows up every single day. And one of the reasons it's so important is because when you do that, you don't have to worry about who you're speaking to. Not everyone's going to love you, but you don't have to worry about putting on the different hats. I did this. I know this firsthand because I used to do this. I was this person when I went and spoke to athletes. I was this person when I was with my friends, this person with my family. And one day I remember I was literally in a meeting with two sports agents, and I kind of just forgot which meeting I was in. And I got a little confused, and they were looking at me like, what are you even talking about? Because I was trying to play a part of a person showing up. I wasn't being me. And literally that was part of the turning point that I said, what the heck? I can't be showing up in meetings and like forgetting who I am. So I did the same thing on myself. I stepped back. It took me 2 months actually to go through all those questions I just mentioned, outlined core values, legacy, every single thing. And then that's just who I now show up as, which is me. You know, what you see is what you get. Whether you talk to me online, you show up in a webinar, or you actually meet me in person at the coffee shop, it's all going to be the same thing.
Now, if I'm trying to be the real, I don't want to say the real me, because I'm always the real me. But if I, you know, for example, I might have certain political leanings. Well, right now, today, whatever leaning that is, I'm 50% wrong, right? Or there's 50% of the people that'll see you later. Or if I've views on religion or whatever, all this stuff, right? Maybe I don't want to necessarily share that. I mean, do you recommend that people be as genuine as possible, or maybe they're genuine to an extent for certain things and they just don't share the rest, or what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think you have to keep in mind there's a big difference between deciding to have an opinion and have an argument, and then deciding to be someone who listens to understand other people and then looks to add value. So it's about the value add. For me, it's not necessarily about my opinions on things. It's about the value that I show up to the world. If you have some sort of political insight that you think is going to add value to people, that's great. Now, if it's a personal opinion, that becomes a little bit of a different situation. So with a lot of the clients that I work with, we'll come up with a list of things that may be considered topics that could become controversial at some point in time. And if that doesn't align with their brand, which most of them it doesn't, we simply avoid it. Again, you can still understand, you can still enter these conversations. You could decide in this conversation that we're having that you want to talk about politics, religion, whatever it may be. And I can listen to understand, and I can say, hey, Mark, that's great. I really appreciate you sharing. We actually don't agree, and we're just going to have to agree to disagree, but that's okay. I still value your opinion. So understand the difference between the value add and simply having an opinion.
That was really nice, except I don't know anybody online right now that's being so nice about it. They're like, you're an idiot, screw you, kind of thing. I see that all the time in the comments that I read, but I guess I get my jollies mostly from reading, other people's comments on things that they really put themselves out there. And I think most people tend to forget that the permanency of social media and how everything can be found until it hurts them, right? Until it slaps back. I'm assuming that's a big part of what you try to work with your clients, is really teaching them from day one. Look, anytime you type in a letter or a number or something, Twitter, anywhere, it can be found. I mean, I'm assuming that's true.
Always. It can always be found. And that's one of the biggest things is that a lot of people, because when I first start working with someone, I do a deep dive and look through everything. I mean, every single post that has ever gone out. So I'm telling you, like, there are some individuals right now, I mean, say they're, young professional coming out of college or, a pro athlete about to get drafted. They might have started Facebook when they were 12, 13 years old. Yeah, I don't think that their views are the same today as they may have been when they were that age.
Right.
And so you need to go back and evaluate all of those. Also, a lot of people have the misconception that just because you delete your account, everything goes away. Fun fact, it doesn't. If you do think that you have so much out there that you need to start over, you have to deactivate the account before you delete it. So if you're one of those people, you actually
Interesting.
can go in and deactivate. That is supposed to remove everything. I can't guarantee it, but you have a better chance than these people who simply delete their account and then things surface and they say, I don't even have that account anymore. Well, it was still out there. You simply just deleted the account, not everything associated with it.
Okay. Good to know. I see. I didn't know that. Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah.
Checks in the mail. I appreciate that. No, that's great advice.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of, I think most people, when they feel that they want to be on a platform that whether they're a celebrity, they're an athlete, they're an entertainer, they're whatever they are, an actor, etc., and they always want to grow their presence. That's one of the things that I like to talk about as well. How do you take the value that you add and increase the audience? And you know, you go on, you get emails all day long, or I do anyway, on how to 10x this and how to 10x that. All kinds of people have their ideas on how to do this, but do you have a couple of simple tips of things that you believe will grow someone's, network
Mm-hmm.
and followers?
So content is king, consistency is queen. Okay. So consistency is so important and almost equally important as the actual content that you are putting out there. I know firsthand, I did this with one of my clients who at the time was a minor league baseball player.
Okay.
And I told him, I said, look, here's how it's going to work. We need to have great content. We need to let people in on what you're doing behind the scenes. But then we also need to make sure that we are posting on a consistent basis. Okay. Now, remember, a minor league baseball player is not on mainstream media. Okay. He's not being featured anywhere. So he's
Right.
kind of, he's similar, playing for as a lot of people. We grew his account 187% over the course of 60 days. Regular posting, that's strictly the only way how it works. That's literally what I do. The same with me, the same with my company account. You have to figure out, again, start with where your value add is, then
Okay.
develop great content, and then stay consistent. A lot of people get overwhelmed with the consistency piece because what they do is they get in a hole where they say, oh my gosh, I haven't posted in 3 days. What am I going to post? And then you have this lack mindset where you're trying to figure out, what do I post and I have nothing to say? And then it feels like you don't have great ideas. So what I encourage you to do is keep a running list. So I use the notes section in my phone because then it's automatically tied back to my computer. And so I literally will type out stories. So let's say I'm listening to a webinar like this and someone says something and it reminds me, oh, I remember when I first started my company and it sparked this idea. I will literally just type it out and then save it. That way, when it's time to post and a day comes up where I'm like, oh, I have this photo, but I don't really know what to say, I already have a caption that's ready to be posted. Because don't get caught up in feeling like the caption has to mention what's going on in the photo. I mean, it's okay if you're someone who's looking to add value. Yes, they want to see a great photo, but then have a great caption. So if you can start to have some of that, then when you need to be consistent, it will come up. Also, leverage consistency in the stories. This goes specifically for Instagram. But it's harder once you get knocked out of kind of the highlights at the top because you haven't posted something in a while. It's hard to get back. So if you're using Instagram, you want to always have something up on your stories, at least one frame, because the more that people watch it, the more that you show up in kind of their top 5. So that's why when you open up Instagram, it's always the same people at the top, unless they didn't post that day. So stay consistent across different platforms, but figure out what works. Like for my team, yes, I try to post on Instagram and Facebook every couple of days, but LinkedIn, it only makes sense to post once a week. My blog, it only makes sense to post 3 times a week. So also keep in mind, you don't use the same strategy for every platform.
That's great. And so, and I'm assuming not just the same strategy, but the same content or the same length and that sort of thing. That can shift as well. And give me a sense of, I mean, do you tend to sort of specify what content will go on, let's say Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever, based on those audiences? And so tell me a little bit about those audiences also.
Yes, understand your audience. And you brought up a great point. They're not the same people. So the people who are reading your LinkedIn articles are probably not the same people reading your Instagram and your blog. You want to speak to those people. The biggest misconception about any sort of platform is that people care about you. I'm sorry to break anyone's ego, but the reality is that someone comes to your page and your platform because they want to know what you can do for them. Okay. So what I can do for my people on LinkedIn, because I monitor the people that are my connections, it's very business focused. I want to talk about being an entrepreneur, sports business, marketing and branding. I mean, there's very specific content buckets. And then the same goes for everything else. So something on Instagram may be a little bit more vulnerable or involve things about my personal life and my family. It's going to be a little bit different. I'm still showing up as the same person, but you're getting different aspects of my life. So lean in and understand who some of your followers are. You can
Okay.
do that by simply testing out certain types of content. See where you get the most engagement. Where did you get the most comments, the most likes? Put stuff up in your stories. I mean, ask questions. That's what's great about the polling feature that you can use on a lot of the social media channels. You can literally ask questions. What do you want to hear from me? And then that'll help you understand what these people are actually looking for, and then you can lean in to those topics.
Well, that's such a great point, Lauren, because quite frankly, we all feel that, and myself included, that I've got all this knowledge jammed in my head that I want to share with everybody, but they need to want to consume it. So I don't necessarily know what everybody wants to consume. So there's a tendency sometimes to just put it all out there. Just, here's everything, brain dump. And people are like, wait, I only need 4% of that or 10% of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of asking them, and there's a couple of great books written about this stuff, including one called Ask by Ryan Levesque, who talks about the idea of how to survey people in advance, how to poll them, how to find out from someone, what is it you'd love to see or hear about. And that's why we did that at the start of this, is really focusing on sort of what is it that you really want to learn about. Now, some people on the flip side don't necessarily know what they don't know. So they may not be able to ask, gee, I want to learn more about something if they don't know about it. So it's okay to throw some other stuff out there. But at the end of the day, it's important to really identify that. Now, in terms of you were talking about earlier, content is king and consistency is queen. I think you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I do that right? Holy
Yes,
cow.
you got it. You're listening. Good job.
Go, Mark. High five. But in terms of content and then consistency, but are there certain other strategies to sort of grow like, do I need to advertise? Do I need to, tell my friends, hey, share this with everybody? I mean, what's a good way to grow from 4 to 50 to 1,000, or is it strictly content?
Yeah, so content is definitely at the top. Then you want to think of it, I like to refer to it kind of as a spider web. So what I mean by that is you want to share your content on as many different areas, tag different people. Yes, you can share it with your friends, but also know that if you're putting out good content, it should speak for itself and people should be sharing it because they think that it added value. So if you focus on the value add and you're really speaking to those people, they will share it. I mean, I do it all the time. If I see something that I love, whether it's a quote or it's advice, I'm resharing it on whatever platform that I'm on. So focus on that, number one, but then also keep an eye on ways that you can collaborate and ways that you can comment. Let's say, you have to play the game. So if you're on any form of media, you cannot just post because that's not fair. You can't just come on and add value. You got to put in a little bit of work. So you should be commenting on other people's posts. You should be liking their things. You should be DMing them. I know it's the joke, like it goes down in the DM, but it literally does. I mean, I've done some of the biggest brand partnerships and connected with some of the best people, sending them a DM. So don't
Interesting.
be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I saw that you posted about this. I love this. I have a personal story that did X, Y, and Z. Maybe that person has a podcast and they want you to come on. Maybe now they start following you and they're telling all of their friends. So I do the same with athletes. And right now is a good time to lean into this because, like I said, people are at home more. I have a lot of my clients who are doing interviews with people who don't have as big of a following as they normally would. Because here's the thing, even if there's 2 viewers that view that video or that interview that they did, those 2 people could go tell 2 people, and then it keeps going, it
Right.
multiplies.
Right.
So don't underestimate the power of people and just having good content. I mean, you do a great job of this. Whenever you post something new or you have something coming up like today, not only do you post about it, you tag all of the people who you've ever interviewed before. That's huge because, one, it alerts them. We're all busy. We need the alerts. We need to know that, hey, there's something, and I know you're only going to share something good. So if Mark's sharing something on LinkedIn, hey, I should probably take a look at it. I appreciate the fact that you tagged me. I don't have to go find it myself. That's another area.
Hmm.
And then again, it starts to just build these different connections where those people who are in there start looking around, hey, who are these people? Like, someone actually reached out to me today and said, hey, I first heard about you, this event that you were doing for NBA All-Star Weekend, and I didn't reach out, but then I saw again, Mark talked about you, and then I saw you doing this webinar, and so I really want to reach out, and it's like the first time it didn't work. The second time they decided to reach out, now they're asking for ways to collaborate. You never know when the ball is going to drop. So figure out ways to spread things as wide as possible, connecting with them, tagging them, commenting, but doing it in a way that also it's, again, adding value.
Well, that's great because one thing I try to do all the time is if I read an article or something, and let's say it's on LinkedIn, I don't, I'm not the guy that just likes. I always like to comment and add my 2 cents or add my, hopefully, valuable feedback to that. But I find that there are some people that just go around and go like, and I think that's in fact the other sort of the lazy way around it. I feel like there should be some more engagement than just doing that. Even if it's just somebody you say, look, you're spot on, this is great advice, thanks, kind of a thing. But just, I think that'd be my biggest advice to a lot of you that are watching, that if you are engaging on social media, try to add more than just the like, because the writer of the article that you're addressing is going to, number one, they'll see that you liked it, but when you engage with them, they're very likely to answer back and start a dialogue.
Exactly. And it's all about connection. I mean, it's proven that people who have better relationships and better connections are happier and more successful people. I mean, you can look this stuff up. So also keep in mind connecting with those people. Yes, maybe they needed that validation. Maybe it was really, really hard for them to put out what they did. You never know what it took for someone to put something out there, especially if it's something vulnerable. Even if it's business related, it can still be vulnerable to say, I was so scared, but I quit my job because I knew it was the right thing to do. And someone being willing to say, oh my gosh, I see you, I hear you, I did the same thing, or hey, you just inspired me to go do the same thing. It validates that person, and you don't know how far that can go. Also, you don't know where that person's going next. That's the other thing too. You may put a comment on someone's post that changes their life. Now that person is the CMO at this company that you're trying to reach out to. You better believe that person is going to do a deal with you over the next person. Even if that other person has 10 to 20,000 other followers, I guarantee you, I do it all the time.
Yeah.
All the best deals that I do, it's relationship based. So you do not know where these people are going to go next. And the more that you can grow actual relationships and show that you care about people, it always pays off in the long run.
That's a brilliant answer, and it's absolutely true. Look, throughout my career, it's 90 whatever it is percent of the business is because of that relationship. It's because of the, when you meet someone, what can I do for you? Because the things will come back, always. So that's a great response and a great point. Now, right now, the economy is sort of struggling. There's lots of challenges. There's lots of products and a lot of things that are going through, travel and luxury goods and so forth that are going through some tougher times. And athletes often wonder, should I be endorsing a product, or what should I be doing during this sort of big pause on everything? Do you feel that now is a good time to jump on board with some brands, or a good time to stay away from them? What's your feeling about that?
Yeah, no, I mean 100% jump on board. Figure out ways to innovate, get creative. Obviously, big video shoots, photo shoots, appearances are not happening. Okay, what if they're still not happening in 6 months? We're just going to hang out at home and stay on social media and hope that a deal comes through. You have to figure out ways to innovate and get creative. So right now there's tons of athletes getting paid to do e-gaming events and tournaments. There's also tons of charity events going on. So keep in mind, if you were to I'm doing this with one of my clients. We're actually hosting an e-gaming event on Twitch in a couple of weeks, and it's going to benefit the local Boys and Girls Club that he's tied to. And yes, it's going to be worth obviously those 2 hours of his time because of the fact that the money is going to a great place, but also it's a way to build his brand because he's going to be on Twitch with these hundreds, if not thousands of other people who maybe never knew who he was or weren't really that interested, and now they're playing a video game with him. That can convert to followers, but also now we have a way to go to brands down the line and say, hey, you know what, Mr. So-and-so, I saw that your company is a corporate sponsor of the Boys and Girls Club. I've been really involved with them. I did this really cool event. Do you want to have a conversation and maybe talk about some ways we can work together? I mean, it opens up doors to have those conversations. So get innovative. You can still do campaigns on social media right now. Just think about who are the companies who have budgets. I mean, as we saw, if you've watched The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary and everything that's going on, State Farm did a great job. And keep in mind, they moved up the release date. So State Farm had to innovate quickly and put together those commercials where they pretend, they say that was lit and this is something you're going to be saying. And tons of people were like, wait, is this a real commercial or is this an ad? So, that's innovative. Clearly, they're a company who gets it. So where are the other companies like that who are figuring out ways to make commercials right now? There were some companies who did it for the NFL Combine. There were a lot of those athletes, you might not have noticed, there were a lot of those athletes that were getting paid during the Combine, and they were getting paid to have the Pizza Hut box sitting on the table. They're getting paid to have those Bose headphones on, while they waited for the call. So again, just think about different ways. Maybe when you go live on Twitch for a charity e-gaming event, maybe you're using a special controller or you're wearing headphones from a company who's looking to get their brand out there and innovate. So just get creative and lean into the things that you're already doing and figure out ways to kind of pull from things, whether it's charity or brands that you already use, to go after it. Like now is the time to start the conversations. But also when you reach out, open up the conversation by saying, hey, how are you? Like really, how are you? Because also people right now want to feel that. They want to feel that connection. And when they feel like you genuinely care, again, it starts that relationship and who knows where they can go next.
Well, and you thing you just mentioned there, where you just start. One of the things I talk about is that sometimes the best time to be involved with business, or to be involved with, in this case, marketing and branding, is when it's like everything is stopped right now, because now it's the best time to start those relationships. And we talked about that earlier, and start creating much more value, because then when things do emerge, they're going to come back to you. They're going to come back to the person that stuck with them during that tough time, and not the person that was waiting for things to pivot back around to all the great glory days and so forth. So that's, it's funny because I talk the same way with people that are looking for a job, and they say to me, Mark, is this even this is a terrible time to look for a job. There's all these unemployed people out there and so forth. And I always say, well, look, how many jobs do you need? You only need one.
Right.
And right now there's very little competition because, quite frankly, people aren't sure what to do, and so they're not out there. So go for it. So it's the same sort of thing here with, I think, going after endorsement deals and so on, is that maybe it's okay to take a bit of a discount to get in with somebody or with a company that is thrilled that you're taking that discount now, because you'll be able to really leverage that going down the road.
Absolutely.
So now, so let's say I've got whatever it is, 1,000 followers, 5 million followers, whatever I've got followers wise. In terms of content, you talked about that earlier and adding value, but are there any, especially if I'm an athlete, I mean, there's sort of, I mean, I think people think that there's a limited amount of stuff we can talk about now, but what do you think is some of the content that would really resonate with a sports fan? If I'm an athlete and I want to talk to my base, what do you think they care about?
Humanization. They want the relatability factor. And here's the thing, this is the first time in any of our lives that we have all been on a level playing ground, okay? Because usually when things happen and the economy crashes and things go wrong, sports continue to happen. So
Yeah.
while you're sitting at home and you don't have as much money and you had to give up your season tickets, the athletes are still on TV. Right now, none of that is happening. So it's a level playing field, and the people that are stuck at home want to feel like they can relate to these people, because most often, and we do it all the time, we put these people on pedestals, and it's hard to really think, oh, how am I going to be inspired by this person because they're making millions of dollars? And it's like, no, they're athletes just like us who are having to battle this, whether they have the virus, someone in their family did, whatever it may be. There's so many different things that are going on. So humanize yourself and focus on the relatability. How are you doing your at home workouts? Because I'm working out at home too. So, what are you doing that maybe I can do? What are you doing to stay healthy through food? Are there meal delivery services that you've been using? Which then there's a great endorsement deal if there's someone that you've been very loyal to. But what are the things that you're doing on a daily basis to stay fit, stay healthy, stay sane, stay connected to different people? Because right now, those are all things that I feel like I could do too, as opposed to when we have, our normal time where they have access to all these different things. A lot of them are using webinars. The NFL clearly did everything virtual. So there's so many different ways to connect. So I want to know, what are you doing? Are you still getting up at the same time, or are you letting yourself sleep in a little bit? What are you eating for breakfast to stay healthy? What are you doing to make sure that you're staying fit? What are the workouts that you're doing? Have you turned, some of your patio furniture into some ways, to lift some weights in the backyard? I want to know what those things are, because they make you feel relatable and they make you feel human. And that is what people will connect with, because then that's what people want. It's like, why do you think so many of these influencers and bloggers blew up? A lot of people buy what they're selling without even looking into it. They say, "Oh my gosh, I use this new skin cream." The thing flies off the shelf and you can't even find it. The same thing goes with the athletes, but a lot of times athletes think, "Oh, the only thing I have to talk about is sports." Well, no, don't you eat? Don't you drink water? Aren't there all these different things? You work out, you do things that other people want to know so that they can be inspired to get to that level.
Well, and you bring up a great point about being relatable and sort of humanizing yourself, because you know every athlete I work with and deal with, um, I'm not the fanboy. I'm not the guy that's saying, hey, oh, let's talk about your game-winning touchdown or the home run you hit. I mean, that's great, maybe someday over a beer, but we have business to talk about, and they love that. Athletes love a lot of times talking about not the stuff that they're known for, and talking about, like, they'd love to share their opinion about a movie they just saw, or something totally off the beaten track, or their favorite type of hamburger or whatever the hell it is. So that's absolutely true. And what's interesting is that now more than ever, there are different ways to engage with fans, and there's companies that there's one that I know about, Starsona, that allows you to have like a 30-second chunk of video sent to, you can order it. So I could reach out to, whoever it might be, some, whatever, a baseball player or something, and say to him, look, I'd love for you to give my son, Johnny, a quick shout out for his birthday or something, and they'll do that. And it's certain other ways that really, I saw something the other day, and I can't remember who it was, but he had his iPad, and it had a photo on it that someone sent him, and he autographed with his pen, like the electronic pen, his autograph on it, save and send it back. I mean, it was making money for charity, but I thought that was so cool. I'd never seen anything like that. So there's lots of other ways to engage that really, now's a perfect time for an athlete to really develop a much bigger following.
Absolutely. And innovate. I mean, even just that thing you said on the iPad, I mean, that's extremely innovative and something that I've never heard of before. So if you can be the first person to do those things, I mean, it'll catch on and you'll see other people doing it.
You know, I'm one of the first people to ever do a webinar. Did you know that?
Wow. I'm not surprised.
Me and 6 million other people. But anyway, listen, before we go much further, please, I insist anybody to put your questions in the question box or button or whatever it is down below that you have for Lauren or myself. It'd be great to go through some of those in a little bit. Now, moving forward, um, do you feel that, I mean, look, right now, athletes, celebrities, executives, other people tend to have more time for some of this stuff that they're doing online. But is there a point where you, and I know what your answer might be, but should they be passing it on to somebody like you or an expert that's actually good at not just maybe the visuals and how it looks, but the wording? And you know, maybe they don't change the message, but they change how it's said.
Well, obviously, I'm going to say yes, but here's the thing. I think it's more the strategy because here's the like it happened to me today. One of my clients who's not a pro athlete forwarded me an email, which actually was an email blast that got sent out. They're on an email list, and he forwarded to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about this? You think there's any ways to that we can collaborate?" Without even responding to him, I came up with all these ideas. I just emailed the company right away. They responded within 5 minutes and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm in. When can we get on a call?" But you know what I mean? Like, but my client is caught up in what their day to day is. Same with an athlete. They're thinking, okay, I have to make sure I'm working out, I'm eating. You know, all these guys who just got drafted, you need to be getting ready for the plays and getting ready for training camp. So it's also a strategy thing where there's only so much space in your brain. And yes, maybe we have a little bit more time right now, but there's going to be a time when you go back to having practice and all these things. So it's figuring out having someone who just thinks differently and thinks about ways to expand your brand, increase your exposure, and of course, figure out ways to monetize. It also allows there to be a buffer because sometimes brands will be a little bit turned off if someone reaches out and says, "Hey, do you want to partner with me?" And it's just a little bit different. Also, you can kind of play good cop, bad cop. So my clients will do this to me too, where they're like, "Hey, this person DM'd me on Instagram. I love their stuff. I actually use it all the time. But do you think I could get paid?" And it's like, okay, this is where I come in and say, "Hey, you know what? Here's who I am. Let me negotiate with you. Here's our typical rates. What can you do?" So it takes the pressure off of you because if you actually do love that brand and you guys are always DMing and going back and forth, but now they just made it business, pass it off to the person who handles business and you can continue being their friend, which is the same. A lot of times they'll come to me and say, "Hey, my friend just came up with this business proposal. They want me to invest. Like, I feel really awkward." I'm like, just tell them you have a team. Okay. Pass it to the team. Tell them now it's off your hands. You can keep being friends. So it's also just being able to have someone to pass things off to who can be a buffer. And I used to say, like, I sometimes am just the no man or the no woman. A lot of times I'm just the person that they say, "Hey, can you tell this person no or tell them that I'm busy because I really love them but they want me to show up to this thing and I just, to be honest, I'm going to be tired after practice." I'm like, "No problem. I don't mind doing that." So just think about that person can also be the strategist and the buffer.
And the agent almost, right?
Yeah.
And that's brilliant, by the way. Lauren, right there, that just paid for everything.
There we go.
Saying no, look, telling people that you're going to ask your team about it, ask my group of advisors about this, you know.
You also
I'm
sound like you've got it together. I mean, that's the other thing too. It's like, "Oh, hold on, I got to talk to my team." And then they're like, "Whoa, okay. You are more than an athlete." You know, that whole brand that's going on right now, more than an athlete. It's like, wow, you know, I'll tell you, and I will tell you this does pay off. This is the number one reason why I actually started doing work with Terrell Owens is because he and I were on a business deal together separately. I wasn't working with him.
Mhm.
We were both brought in on a deal together. And I remember the deal started to go south. Like the people we were dealing with, I'm like, "There's something that's not right here." And so he and I were texting about it and we had a separate conversation. And he said, "Hey, let me get my guy on the call, my business advisor, all this." We start having calls. I bring in my business advisors. He brings in his. We're now having these conference calls with the 6 of us. And I told him after, I said, look, I'm so impressed because first of all, you have this really solid team, especially because you're willing to admit that there are things that you've done in the past that put you in a bad financial situation and you don't want to go back there. So now you have someone that you bring in. And let me tell you, this person was extremely knowledgeable in what they were doing as it relates to business and financial moves that you make. And so that's what led me to then say, hey, we need to do some work together. And, now we're doing YouTube together and all that. But that's where it came in because I was impressed and said, clearly you take yourself seriously, that you want to have these people on your team because just like when I hire people or people that I work with, I don't want to be the smartest person in the room because how the heck am I growing as a person if I'm the person in there who knows every single thing that's going on?
Well, that's amazing. And there's someone who's asked a question of, gee, how expensive is it to have somebody, I don't want to put you on the spot and say it like you, Lauren, but somebody that that can really run with this whole branding and marketing. And you know what? Give me a sense of what you think a range is or something, and then I'm gonna throw something at you. Like,
so typically it's monthly retainer. Usually you're going to pay, I mean, I know a lot of people who do it cheap, but my level of experience in things anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 a month. But I would ask these questions. If you were to come to me and ask me the questions to work together, or you go to someone else, ask about the ROI. Because typically the way that I set things up is that I'm focused on how am I making your money back tenfold? Because if I can't at least break even with you, which technically breaking even monetarily, you probably grew followers and you grew relationships. So actually you come out ahead. But the goal is to at least make sure that that comes back. So that's the short answer, but make sure that you also ask those questions. I think that's important.
good. So one of the things I like to point out, because people often ask me, well, Mark, how expensive is your coaching, right? And when I tell them, they say, wow, that's a lot. And my simple explanation is that, I mean, look, we all know that there's plenty of free advice out there and plenty of very cheap advice and inexpensive people and so forth. And yeah, I can say till I'm blue in the face, well, you get what you pay for. But I like to turn around a different way and say, look, if you were, let's say I'm advising someone on how to find a job. Let's say we'll talk about that for a minute. Well, it might be something where if they're used to making $100,000 a year, for argument's sake, well, for every week that they're not working, they're losing $2,000. Every Friday or every Monday, they're waking up, they're down $2,000. And I try to explain to them, look, if my strategies allow you to get a job that you're thrilled to be in, you're successful in, you're engaged, everything else, and it's just 4 weeks sooner than you would have been by, I don't know, sitting at home and answering ads or something, just the 4 weeks, that's $8,000 that I've saved you by that. But I've also taught you all kinds of things that benefit you the rest of your life and your career. And it's the same thing with branding and marketing, where it might be something where, yes, if you're $4,000 or if you're $10,000, let's say you're $10,000. Well, if I give you $10,000, yeah, I want to get that 10K plus in return, but it's also a lost month that without that, it's just a wasted month that I'm actually losing ground, and I might be going underwater a little bit financially because I don't have somebody like you to do this stuff.
Right. I also think, right off the bat, if someone says, ooh, that's a lot of money, it's like, well, maybe we're not the right
Yeah,
partnership, because I
right.
think once you get to that point, you have to remember and you have to remind yourself, like, you're not paying for just who, like, this and like the day-to-day of work I'm going to do. It's 10 plus years of the work that I've been doing day in and day out for 10 years that now shows up in the form of this individual. So you have to also remember, and that's where a lot of times I'm like, I don't necessarily need to justify it, but if I do, that's what I'm going to say. And it's also, to your point, the reality is that where's that going to get you? I used to be that person, total lack mindset. And I think if you're someone who your immediate reaction is, ooh, that's a lot of money, think about what is your relationship to money. I didn't have a great relationship with money up until recently, because growing up, I'd always talk about, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to have cars and do all these things. And a lot of people would say to me, do you think there's a money tree in the backyard? And I'd get so intimidated. And then I learned that because of all those things that happened, I had a certain relationship with money that I had to change. And I had to also then see my value. But this goes the same if you're someone who's thinking about hiring someone like you and I. What is the value? I'm literally going through a boot camp right now myself, a mastermind that years ago I would have never fathomed paying the amount of money that I'm paying to be in this. But the level of return that I saw literally week one reminded me, holy cow, when you get out of this, not only are you going to be able to charge more for what you do, but you're just going to be able to add way more value to the world, which then shows up in various streams of revenue. Like that's my goal with clients. I mean, you want to get paid doing what you love, but you better come out. What do they say? The average millionaire has seven streams of revenue. So why wouldn't you want all those different revenue streams? So it's, figuring out how to make all that work.
Perfect. Now, before we go too much further, Lauren, what's the best way for people to find you or to check out your site, etc.?
Yeah, so lwbranding.com. All of our social handles are at lwbranding. If you go through those, you can find ways to contact me. But also my email is simply lauren@lwbranding.com. Follow us on all of there, always putting out great content. But also, I love when people reach out. I might not get back to you within minutes, but I have conversations all the time with people, whether they're just getting out of college and they want to do what I do, or people who just say, hey, can I pick your brain, for 15 minutes? So please reach out if you think that there's a way I can add value.
Oh, that's brilliant. And well, you obviously can add value, so everybody should be reaching out to you and connecting with you on social media everywhere. And listen, also, I encourage everybody that if you know anybody, whether you're athletes or celebrities or entertainers or executives or high net worth people, whatever it is, anybody and everybody that is looking to really create a bigger brand and I encourage you to encourage them to reach out to Lauren. Lauren, you're just the expert I love having on the show. This is great.
Thank
You're
you
amazing.
so much.
And so look, the bottom line with the Win Again Academy and how I'm trying to bring in members for that is that you have access to experts just like Lauren. And there's going to be courses that Lauren's going to be involved with, and we're going to be putting on not just the markmoyer.com website, but also straight at Lauren's as well. The bottom line with this kind of content is it's the value. And yes, there's some entertainment factor because everybody obviously loves watching us talk, but instead they love hearing what we have to say and the advice. And so that's what we want to keep on plugging away. But thanks again for your time, everybody. If you have any further questions, please send an email, etc. And otherwise, stay healthy, stay happy, and thanks for being on board, Lauren.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Mark. Appreciate you.
All right, all the best. All right, bye-bye.